Lawrence, welcome in to LeaderPass Studios. We are so thrilled to have you here, have you back. And not just because we love the 706 Fly Guy and we love everything that you're doing for the veteran community and people with PTSD, but also because you are my father-in-law.
Absolutely.
So I've gotten the chance to get to know you and go through some ins and outs of things that you're struggling with, but also amazing things that you've brought to our family, and one of them being your daughter, my wife.
Yeah. Yeah.
For anybody that doesn't know, Lawrence was a chief in the Navy, and you were in the IT department, but also you did boardings on Somalian pirate ships, some super cool things. And every time we get a chance to sit down and talk, it's like, man, they could make a movie about that.
Yeah.
So it's just super cool, and we're super thrilled to have you. But for anybody that doesn't know, can you kind of give a high level of what you did in the Navy and how long you served, and just kind of high level view of that?
Yeah. So I served for 20 years from 1994 to 2014. I came in initially undesignated. I wanted to be a police officer in the Navy to begin with. And in order to do so, you had to come in undesignated, get to the rank of E4, and then you could go to a school if they selected you. So I did the undesignated work for a little bit. I actually became a torpedoman first, simply because I saw one of them as a rescue swimmer, and the work looked pretty fun. However, advancement turned to be a sour thing. I did become a rescue swimmer. So my first year in, I actually had my captain come to me and specifically ask me to go to rescue swimmer school because we needed an extra one for deployment. So they deployed, I went to school and became a swimmer. After becoming an E4, I realized that the police idea wasn't for me anymore, and that I wanted to be in IT because the world was shifting with the IT, and the development was great, right? So why not get on that trajectory? But also part of the reason in becoming that is I wanted to be a SEAL. And so I tested, I qualified in 2002, October. I went to BUD/S, got all the way to Hell Week, and January 10th, 2003, rang the bell and I was out. I took that a little hard because, people don't like to fail. And people that want to be high achievers, whatnot, like failure even less. And I felt like I was one of those guys. So I came back as an E5. I went to a ship. Definitely took a little flack getting there, not making it. But my goal was to get back because you have to wait 2 years, you go back again, and this time I was getting it. However, within 2 years, I was actually up for chief. And I had met the right master chief on my ship. So I was doing IT work. I got to go to a lot of advanced networking schools. I became pretty much like a hacker for them as well because you need to learn a hack to be able to secure it. But I was advanced to chief, and once you're a chief, you're not going back to BUD/S. And besides, I'd gotten settled where I was, and I was on a new trajectory. But I knew I still wanted to do something exciting, so I became a boarding team member, visit, board, and search and seizure.
So real quick, how does that process happen? Because I think some people are thinking possibly IT to then boarding pirate ships. Like, how do you kind of make that?
So initially, back in the early 2000s, after 9/11, obviously team guys, SEALs and other special forces, they were doing a lot of the non-compliant boardings and whatnot. We actually, as sailors from ships, we were doing compliant boardings. So if the ship wanted to pull over for us and say, hey, come search, you can do that. So I was on that first. But then the Navy got too much of a workload, and the SEALs were, for lack of a better term, detained elsewhere doing other work. And so they needed guys that were going to do non-compliant now. So you're going after the guys that obviously
don't want to get pulled over.
They don't want to be pulled over. And they're obviously doing a lot of illegal stuff. And there were high-valued targets that you'd go after, meaning individuals, equipment, drugs, weapons. But my final deployment was probably the most active. And so there, me being a chief on the ship, I had to balance my division of 15 guys and work in the multi-million-dollar IT department in the middle of the ocean while on deployment, as well as I was a boarding team officer, so leading my team of 14 guys to do these boardings as well. And some would probably say unfortunate. I'm going to say I was extremely fortunate, and I'm just going to use his name, Commander Quast. He was incredible because he wanted to board everybody. And if you're a boarding guy, you want to go board everybody. Because, I mean, you're not doing it because it's boring to you, right? Or you're scared. You're doing it because it's exciting, and you know it needs to be done. So that deployment, we just did a ton of boardings. Some, which we could talk about a little after, on one specific that was really big. But anyway, I got through the 20 years with it. So 11 years of boarding, a lot of IT, and of course being a rescue swimmer.
Yeah. It's so cool. And like I said, it's kind of just like a movie plays in your head every time you tell those stories, and you're just like, man, like you actually did some of these things that they do make movies about. Taking a step back, you're married to Lisa.
Yes.
Who is the mother of my wife, and you had Kayla. So it's the three of you guys, and I guess whenever you did finally come out of the Navy, you retired. What was that transition like? I think a lot of people talk about transition and how it's very difficult. Did you try to get other jobs? Was it just kind of like, okay, I'm done. I worked my butt off for 20 years. And what was sort of that process like?
So when you retire, a lot of people think that the military is going to pay your way. You can retire for good, and 38 you're done. It's not true. You only get a half of your actual base pay and whatnot. So you have to go back to work. And so work-wise, I did that. I initially I wanted to be a teacher / coach with the high school in Pierce County. And I did start community coaching and doing substitute teaching. I quickly learned that something about me wasn't clicking enough to be able to handle certain kids in school. But however, I didn't equate anything yet. So I went and got regular jobs. I was in a telehealth, the first one, and then director of IT in the second, which I got fired from both. Okay. And in my head, I couldn't like calculate and comprehend, wait a minute, I just spent 20 years nonstop doing this very well. What am I not doing here? But what was happening is I really wasn't able to put back what I did before and translate it to the civilian world, just two really totally different worlds. Yeah. And some of that translated back into the house. I deployed a lot. I was on 7 deployments. I had a year overseas away from my family, so a lot of time away from my family. And so you had to start relearning who everybody was. Yeah. And getting used to the system, because Lisa ran everything and obviously did very well with it. Mm-hmm. But now you feel like you want to be a part of this because, hey, I'm home, right? I can. Even that part was really tough. So emotionally, physically, a lot of things were starting to take toll, and I was getting more angry, a lot more stress, more fidgety, and I didn't really understand until I went and spoke with somebody, and that's when they diagnosed me with PTSD, and along with, of course, all the physical ailments that you get. So the transition itself, once I realized I couldn't work anymore, that was a big setback for me. Because you feel like you're a failure now, again.
Yeah, it's really interesting too, and kind of stepping back, taking everything through the lens of whenever I entered the picture, I guess about 5 years ago, you were at a point, and this is from my perspective obviously, but you were at a point where you had just moved back up to New Hampshire, around the area that you were born. It kind of seemed like you guys kind of isolated, you and Miss Lisa kind of isolated up, and you built a cabin, and it was awesome. But did you feel, I guess, isolated? Did you want to feel isolated, or was that just a byproduct of moving back up that way?
So the idea was, okay, so you're trying to piece everything together. Like, why am I feeling the way I'm feeling? What's going on, and why are my relationships with my immediate wife, daughter, versus my family up in Massachusetts, siblings and parents. And so we thought it would be good to move up to New Hampshire, build a cabin. One, the woods is really nice because I love the outdoors. So for me, that's really a warming thing, right? But I knew now I had an opportunity to be back with my family, and maybe we could build that bond back, and they could kind of help me with what I was going through. Because, I mean, who better than your siblings and your parents, right? But somehow that turned the opposite way. And yeah, we weren't speaking as much, and now we're just living on this side of this mountain in a remote town. Beautiful place. I again, the nature and everything is wonderful, but once you start feeling you're by yourself and you know your child is in Georgia and she's met you and your lives are building, I knew, Lisa knew as well, that, hey, we want to get back there and be a part of that, and that's going to help as well. Yeah. And so, yes, it was a good idea. Just a side note, it was great for her medical, my wife's medical, of course, Lisa's, and that helped. So God put us where we needed to be at the time to see a more clear picture of what we needed to do. Yeah. And so we did that.
So that brings you back here. That was 2022. Yeah, 2022. And you got back here, y'all moved to around Cleveland, Georgia. Still a little bit away from people.
Yes.
Which I guess your PTSD and what you went through, and I don't really want to get into details of that because obviously that's private, that's between you and God. But I think, is it people sometimes set you off if you're in the wrong environment, or is it more the wrong people that can push your buttons, I guess?
So there's a number of things. So a lot of people equate PTSD to a traumatic event. Well, I like to think of anybody who's been in the military, especially 20 years, you've had a lifelong series of events, right? And so a lot of things. Long beards for me. Obviously, I equate it to folks overseas, and not to be any way, but that's just where I'm at, right? And so those folks that grow those long beards, I see that, it's a trigger for me.
Am I triggering you right now with
no,
my intense beard?
Not those ones. But lots of people, like I used to be able to do crowds, I can't do crowds. I have to sit and obviously see the door where I'm at. I assess everywhere I go. I assess the people. And so coming back, obviously it was a reason to be isolated again, to be away from all of that. Yeah. So, and I felt bad because I kind of was isolating Lisa and I from you and Kayla, which was wrong, you know?
Yeah. I mean, we definitely, and this is, I'm sure families with somebody who have PTSD all know this, but you kind of start to recognize little ticks of like, okay, I really can't talk about that because that might get them agitated, get them irritated or something like that. But I think you and I quickly hit it off whenever we met. And I think there was a certain level of like, I didn't want to call you on some stuff that you were doing, but it almost feels like I needed to. So from your point of view of somebody who has that and who has a family that might call you out on some stuff, do you view that as, and it might be person to person, but on the whole, do you view that as a good thing that a family member can do? Or is that kind of, you got to really have that sort of relationship to be able to do that?
Well, the more, the better I've gotten, and the more I look back at it, I think you need that, because it's easy to, and I've said this before to you guys, it's easy to sit on your tail and feel sorry for yourself and to want people to feel sorry for you. But at some point, you've got to say, you know what? It's time to get back up, cowboy up, man up, however you want to say it, right? And start fixing things, because I'm not the only one going through this. You were going through it with me. Kayla and Lisa were going through it with me. And I didn't see that because I was stuck with my thing. So in general, I think we need people to intervene. Each person is going to be different in how they receive that. And so I think you need to be persistent, but kind of like anything, read the room, see what they need and see which level you go. Me, you know me, I'm a straight shooter. Yeah. So I want you to come and tell me, yes, you might upset me for a second and whatnot, right? Because I might be taken back by it at first. But in the long run, it's helped me, because you doing so has helped me get to where I am now.
Well, and I think that, again, that comes with just our relationship that we have, but there is a certain level too of whenever somebody who has something like you do, or PTSD or whatever it is, even anxiety, depression, but there is a certain level of like, I love you and I really want you to pull out of this. But a lot of the times, and we've talked about this, you really can't help somebody who doesn't want to be helped.
Correct.
So until you kind of made that decision of, hey, I don't want to sit around all day. I want to get out and do something. I don't want to, every time I talk with my daughter or my son-in-law, that there's just like a blow up, right? Because it was that for a little while.
Yes.
I think until you kind of made that switch, and obviously it's easy to say, you know, of like, well, you just got to make the switch. But until you really wanted to be helped, it wasn't going to happen, right?
No, and that's true. It's like PTSD is like any other addiction type thing. It almost does become an addiction because, again, it's easy just to sit on it, right? Yeah. And a lot of military folks, and me to some extent, you want people to realize, hey, I was willing to put my life on the line for everybody, right? So there is still a level that you want people to see that. But at the same time, you're right. You have to look at it and say, am I really comfortable here doing this? Do I really want to sit in this type of pain the rest of my life? And do I want to keep inflicting that? Because you have to be honest. I say this with anything. To give yourself a true assessment, you've got to be just down gritty honest. And the down gritty for me was I was giving hell to Lisa, to Kayla, to you, and probably anybody else that was around me. And I didn't want to come out of that. But there was some click in there, and it might even be a conversation you and I had one day that just said, hey, listen, you've got to stop being this guy, right? And am I going to get rid of it? Probably not. But can I mitigate it? Absolutely so.
Yeah. So it's almost, and I guess for any veterans that might be watching, but also just for the idea of veterans in general, like it's a lifelong pursuit of, or it's an everyday waking up and making that decision to say, hey, I'm not going to let this ruin my life, essentially.
Yeah, and pursuit's a great word because, like anything, so we're driven by checkpoints or accomplishments in the military. Well, we need to be checked by that same thing when we're doing this because, you know, it depends who you talk to. Like, obviously, we get medications, we get counselors. And depending on the counselor, some counselor's going to tell you, if you do this, you're going to be good the rest of your life. The truth is you're not. So the pursuit part is you have to keep working and moving forward to want to be there. Because the moment you're okay sitting back, you're going to sit back really fast. And so I like the term pursuit. That's a good term.
And then that kind of, we had, whatever it was, we had a conversation, you made a choice. You love hunting, right?
Yes.
You love going out there, you love being in the wilderness, you love camping, and also you love fishing. And that was a very big turn, in my opinion, was when you found fly fishing.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think that it's hilarious because me and Kayla joke about it, but for a lot of people out there, it's like, honey, I'm going fishing. And she's like, no, again? Like, you just went fishing yesterday or the day? And for you, it really is. We're all like, go fishing because It is so healing, to use your word, but it's made such a difference in your life. Could you talk a little bit about like how you found that and what made that sort of different than camping or doing any of this sort of stuff?
So when I found it, it was by accident. The VAs, depending where you are located, some are a little bit more helpful than others. I just happen to be part of one that's not as. And so I was looking online, and a lot of people are telling me about fishing. So I thought, okay, I'll take a look. And I found Project Healing Waters, and they have a couple days a month where you tie flies or build rods, and then other days where you go fishing. And I started the fly tie-in part. I love doing that part. Yeah. I feel like Willy Wonka. Let's
scratch that, reverse it.
So you do that, and then you get to go fish it. And I blew off the fishing for roughly a year because I wasn't clicking with the guys. Because military guys, if I'm being honest, military guys can be gruff around each other, right? And I felt like I wanted to get away from that. But the truth is, building that camaraderie back is very helpful, right? Because you're feeling like you're back in an element. But at the same time, you're not doing it in the regards that you're going to look for a pirate or you're going to be in a trench in Afghanistan somewhere or something, right? It's that you're fishing and having fun. And you being outside, just there's something, like you said, the camping, the hiking, the hunting, the fishing, just being outdoors just has this really calming effect for me. And a river with a stream, a North Georgia stream, listening to that run, and you're just trying your best to outsmart that fish. It's actually really fun.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And obviously it's a group of veterans that
Yes.
you're going out with. It seems to be not a magic pill, but almost, like, for these guys who have had such rough lives that now can then go out there on the water and just fish. It seems like it's helping a lot of people in your position.
Yeah, no, it's I'll tell people this, and this is, I really stand firm with this. The medications, they're helpful, okay? Depending on what you do, you can numb yourself. But who wants to go through life numbed, right? So you take what you need. The counseling, again, it depends what counseling you get, or if the VA is even willing to give it anymore, which the long-term part's going away. So you need something that is long-term. And whether you're hanging out with the veterans or not, the veteran programs got me there. Now I just go out and I fish. I see a stream, I go over any bridge somewhere, and I'm like, gosh, I wonder what's in there. And should I stop, right? So it is outdoors. I'll say in general, mine, I'm going to press fly fishing, but just being outdoors. If you can go do anything, you're going to help yourself.
So I guess wrapping this around and tying a bow on it, the PTSD, could you talk a little bit about how that has affected you? Maybe in some overview essence of where you think it happened, but also how fly fishing is now helping that?
Yeah, definitely. So again, like I said earlier, if you talk to a doctor or a psychiatrist, they want to pinpoint an event. I think sometimes there really are events that you can say, hey, I think that was the one, right? However, when you spend a lifetime doing something, or you're doing it long enough, there's going to be a lot of things. And here's my best for instance. You and I come up on a car accident, and it's a really nasty accident. You and I are going to stand there and look at that in a totally different way. You're probably going to be like more horrified or whatever by it, and I'm just going to be like, okay, I'm sad, but I hope they're good or whatnot. But for me, I can move on from that because of what I've seen and done. So what would be traumatizing? That might be traumatizing for you. I was on a deployment where an admiral flew over. We were running scenarios to make sure that we wouldn't have a missile hit. And we couldn't stop this missile hit. If it really came to us in real life, it seemed like. And so the admiral literally came to our ship and told the entire crew these words exactly. There's a chance you could be slaughtered. So an 18-year-old kid coming from home, being nurtured and pampered, and then being told when you're over sitting off a war-torn country that you could be slaughtered, that's traumatizing. I'm not saying that that's definitely not mine. I know that isn't, but that's one thing that sits in your head now for however long you're sitting there, right? And then compound that with the events of boardings, go fast coming in. I missed the explosion of a boat by a month, and Coast Guard sailors died from when we were boarding. So you just look at, people make movies, Lone Survivors one. My friend dies on that mission. And to look back at, or you watch this stuff, it's kind of like, I understand why he might be doing it, but you're bringing back a lot of bad stuff for a lot of us. Right. And so even that kind of stuff really sits and resides in you. So boardings, the military can be a very big bully system, which is really daunting on a lot of people. The level of competition to eat your own per se is tough. And then again, throw some battles in there and you've got a good recipe for being a little off when you go home. All right. I didn't know I was angry, because you could be angry every day in the Navy, and it was normal. But when you got home, you weren't supposed to be angry anymore. So the fishing gets me off the couch. I became really good at Fortnite. You know, I love Fortnite. Sadly, I shouldn't admit that to people, but the truth is that my thing was being back in a battle. It was, but all you did was sit and you kept reminiscing about all the ugly stuff. And fishing takes you away from that. You're not worried about that. You're, okay, did I string my rod right? Do I have the right fly? And if I don't, how am I going to get that fish, right? And just when you're out there, or you're just soaking in the sun and listening to the water run, there's a calm to it. And obviously, if you look at the science behind things, they're supposed to, you know, something from the sun does things for you, helps you sleep better, and different things. And so I say that your trauma can come from almost anything out there. There's just so many things lurking behind the corner that could really do it for you. And when you're put back into it day after day after day, I don't know that you can ever really say that was my moment.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's incredible what you're doing with 706 Fly Guy. And if people want to check out 706 Fly Guy, is there a link that they can go to, or a website? Or
yeah, absolutely. There's if you go to obviously the 706flyguy.com, I've created a website with Lisa to, one, inform people of my story and who I am and what I'm doing and how it helps. It gives information on different fly fishing techniques, tie-in knots, different things, you know, like lesson areas. There's also a spot where I've gone and done all the legwork. I've given you the links of if you're going to another state to fish, if you're a senior, a veteran, resident, non-resident, where you go and how much you're going to be paying, because sometimes that can be, you know, also a daunting task, and confusing. There are definitely some states that are, I just put on there, please call state DNR for information, because it really is, it is that tough. But then we also have the YouTube channel, so at 706 Fly Guy, and the idea there is, one, to have these one-on-one talks, and let's talk about having PTSD and knowing that it's not a life sentence, okay? And it don't have to be a life sentence for you or your family, because as you've noted, it was pretty tough for you guys to work with me on it and probably to watch. But also I want to teach people as a beginner fly fisherman how to fly fish. And so there's going to be that stuff. And I'm going to be getting on the road this summer. I'm going to be doing my New England tour of, you know, getting out there and try to talk to people, veterans and their families, to get outdoors. Yeah. Please make it fly fishing, right? So no, that's my little plug. Make it fly fishing. But if you just get outdoors and go do things with your family and start concentrating more there, get a new focus. Don't keep your focus on your PTSD. Make it your family or your loved ones. They're there to battle with you. So make it easy for everybody.
That's great. That's great. Well, thanks for coming in, man. And I really appreciated talking with you and you being so open. I think that a lot of people are going to watch this and just really appreciate your openness and keeping the dialogue going about PTSD to where it's not taboo. It's like, how do we get through this all together?
Yes. And thank you. And I say, let's do this again and we can talk even more on other things with it.
Let's do it.
All right.